Uhuru. Well, first of all, I just want to give another round of applause for both of the amazing speakers that we heard tonight, Kobina Bantushengo, the African People's Socialist Party, and Chairwoman Penny Hess. Oh, I was wondering why I sounded so loud to myself. Is this all right? So, and I also want to give another salute to Carrie Porter for organizing this great event and all of the comrades who were part of making that happen. Please give yourselves a round of applause. And again, to echo the previous speakers, I want to give the deepest and most profound salute to our leadership, the African People's Socialist Party, and especially its chairman, Omali Yeshitela, who is our chairman, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Uhuru. And Deputy Chair Onezene Yeshitela, who is the architect, the leader on the ground of this incredible project under the chairman's leadership of Black Power Blueprint. So Uhuru is Deputy Chair. And also to Dr. Aisha Fields, who wasn't able to be here, but I'm going to say a few things about Aisha Fields in just a moment when I come back. But right now I'm actually going to sit back down and show you a video, because we are going to talk about reparations to African people, as we've been talking about throughout this event, and the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, which is literally the only organization on the planet Earth of white people working under the leadership of a Black Power movement going into the white community to raise reparations to African people. I guarantee you it's the only one. I challenge you to find another organization that even claims to be doing that. There isn't one. So if you're looking for that, you have found it. And we want to talk about what it means to be a member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, why reparations is the center of everything we do, what reparations looks like. We're going to actually raise money. This event is part of a fundraising tour for the programs of the Black Power Blueprint, African Self-Determination Program. So we're going to raise resources tonight. And for white people, that means we're going to actually engage in reparations. We're not just talking about it, we're going to practice reparations tonight in this room before we leave. We're going to engage in reparations to African people through supporting these programs that are forwarding the struggle of African people for control of all of their resources. So we're going to talk about that in a moment, but first I want to show you a video. It's narrated by Chairwoman Penny Hess, and it is produced by another member of the African People's Solidarity Committee, Kyle Weiss, and this is a very powerful video, so just going to go ahead and show you this. It's like 6 minutes long. Please stick around. Then we're going to talk about engaging in reparations to African people, and then we have Q&A. So we want to hear your questions and comments. So let's turn to the video. And I know the volume wasn't that loud, so I'm actually going to try to put the mic up to the speaker and see if that works.
I didn't have anything to do with it. Slavery is both our legacies. It's mine and it's yours. You inherited the wealth of slavery, and I inherited the poverty of slavery. I am determined to change this legacy that's been left up to me. If you don't change yours for yourself, I'm going to change yours too. So it's best for you to join this one.
The struggle to make honest reparations to African people means we come to terms with the brutal truth of the world as it really is, as experienced by oppressed peoples of this world. Reparations acknowledges the millions of Africans who were ripped out of their land and civilization, who were chained body to body in the holds of ships, brought violently to labor for free on this land stolen from the indigenous people, so that you and I could enjoy a lifestyle we assume to be our birthright. Reparations acknowledges the millions of human beings severed from language and culture, from home and family, mother from child, to produce the wealth for us so that our families could rest on a foundation of seemingly unassailable security. Reparations acknowledges the fact that our grandparents held lynchings of African men and women whose tormented bodies hung from trees as the centerpiece of North American entertainment enjoyed by thousands of us. Reparations is not charity. Reparations lets white people acknowledge that yes, life on the tortured backs of humanity is intolerable, and that our existence as parasites sucking the blood of the peoples of the world is unendurable. Therefore, reparations to African people is in our interest. But in the culture of imperialism, the pursuit of mindless and obligatory happiness can only be purchased with drugs, alcohol, consumerism, conformity, and meaningless pleasure to mask the terrible despair and pain of colonial reality which ceaselessly rises to the surface of our beings. The struggle for white people's reparations to African people acknowledges the inevitable course of history in which those who have suffered and suffocated as the cornerstone of this corrupt system must turn the gun on U.S. imperialism, not to perpetrate violence, but to end it. And that if we are ever to stand in solidarity with African people and the peoples of the world in an honest way, we must carry the weight of our inherited past and present, the children of the slave masters facing the children of the enslaved. We recognize the fundamental reality that our long, violent, parasitic relationship with African people underlies the truth that Africans created the foundation on which our stolen house rests, and that any struggle against U.S. imperialism is necessarily bound to the leadership of African workers in the struggle for independence and socialism. Reparations recognizes that revolution is not waged on empty words or ideas of racism, but in the real seizure of political power, resources, and means of production as the basis of Black power to the African community. And that North American people can unite with our genuine interest in the destruction of this system by building a movement to destroy the resource and power base of U.S. imperialism from within our front, where those resources have been hoarded. Reparations into the hands of the African revolution. Reparations recognizes that only the African People's Socialist Party, the vanguard, the advanced detachment, can solve the problems left to the world by the death grip of parasitic capitalism in the struggle, no matter how difficult, to end the pain of half a millennium of terror through self-determination, self-government, and power, to make sure no vicious terrorists armed with weapons of mass destruction and hideous ideas in their heads can ever hurt any African person ever again. The leadership of the organized African working class will end the system of oppressors and the oppressed, turn the past into power, science into poetry for the people, African internationalism into the currency of the workers, restoring an earth without borders where all human beings can live, no one at the expense of others. The struggle for white people's reparations to African people allows us to become new communist human beings for whom the suffering of any child on this planet is as painful as the suffering of our own child, where our interests are one with the interest of colonized workers for whom there is no rest until African independence is achieved, U.S. imperialism is destroyed, and power is in the hands of the people. Build the movement for white people's reparations to African people. Uhuru. Reparations now!
Uhuru. Sorry for the hold up here. Let's give another round of applause for that video, powerful video. produced by the African People's Solidarity Committee. All right, so let me turn this down a little bit so I don't hurt anyone's ears. All right, good enough. Okay, so now we want to talk about why reparations to African people should be the most important thing in any white person's life. And that is a very serious statement because this is not just like another issue to add to a list of things that we might think is important. This is actually the most important thing. The most important thing. Like Penny said earlier, it's the critical question that we face, that the whole world faces, including white people, is the relationship between African people and oppressed peoples around the world, and white power, including white people. How that is going to be resolved is the number one question underlying all others. So reparations to African people has to be the most important thing to white people who want to see a better world and who want to be part of making a better world come into existence. And I just wanted to say quickly in terms of Dr. Aisha Fields, who is the manager of this store and an incredible leader and the director of the All African Peoples Development and Empowerment Project, that I actually first met this movement in 2009 in Sarasota, Florida, when I went to an event about the destruction of the environment under colonialism, where the main speakers were Chairwoman Penny Hess and Dr. Aisha Fields. And that was a very life-changing moment, obviously. And I remember, I will never forget, there were two things that I heard at that event that have stuck with me ever since. One is a quote from Chairman Omali Shatella that said, "Africa is not poor, Africa is being looted." And the other one was Dr. Aisha Fields said that African people do not suffer from a lack of charity. They suffer from a lack of control over their own resources. And that was just, I mean, it's one of those things that it almost sounds obvious, like you should have known that all along. But when you hear it, it blows your mind because it just cuts right through all the lies that you, especially as white people, have been brought up with, you know, in various forms. Because we talk about racism and how this is not a struggle against racism, which is the ideas in our heads. And really, that's everything we're taught. It's all of the ideas in our heads. It's everything we're taught from the moment we're born as white people. It's this ideology that white people created to explain why we have the highest standard of living while the vast majority of the people on the planet Earth are suffering. So all these lies are created like we're better, we're smarter, we're more talented, which is ridiculous, obviously. I mean, everybody knows that. That's not actually the case, that white people are somehow superior to anybody else on the planet Earth. So it's a false ideology that was created. And you see all of these different things that are done, that are created, that are basically taking advantage of the fact that maybe white people don't want to be part of a parasitic society that rests on the bloodshed of everybody else on the planet Earth. So you see, you know, white people want to perhaps contribute to charity or take an unlearning racism class or something like that, but nothing changes. And in fact, not only is the Uhuru Solidarity Movement, when we talk about reparations, not only is this not a charity organization, because we say this is solidarity, not charity, but we don't simply mean, well, there's charity and then there's this. This is against charity. This is anti-charity. Because charity, it sounds like this nice thing, like it's a charity. Oh, you're compassionate. You're doing something nice for someone. But we can't do anything nice for African people. Even if someone was a millionaire and gave all $1 million that they had to an African person, you're not doing something nice for them. Because everything we have is stolen from African people. Every single cent in a white person's bank account, all white people, is washed in the blood of hundreds of years of stolen African labor and the oppression and exploitation of African people. So charity is like we steal everything from African people, and then the African is starving, so we brush some crumbs off the table, and that African will perhaps not starve for one day, and we'll feel good about ourselves. The only suffering that has been alleviated is my own guilt as a white person. I feel a little bit better that night because I donated a penny a day to Rwanda, so I can feel good about myself. That's literally that's the only pain that is alleviated. Nothing else changes. Power and resources stay in the hands of white people, in the hands of white power, in the hands of the US and European colonial governments. So nothing changes. So charity is actually part of imperialism and the status quo. It's a part of the maintenance of the oppression of African people. and it's very insidious, and that's not what we're about. And then you see even more offensive things like Angelina Jolie and what's her name, Charlize Theron, and people like that going and stealing African children, calling it adoption. I read an article where Angelina Jolie was talking about adding another African child to her collection. And she said it would look wonderful with the living room or something like that. She was talking about a lampshade. So that's supposed to be charity or somehow caring or wanting to do something about the oppression of African people. My point is, this is the polar opposite of that. This is the extreme opposite of that, because this is not about making ourselves feel better, keeping ourselves in the center, or trying to be the good white people or the white saviors. This is about taking responsibility for our past and present reality as colonizers, as parasites on the body of humanity, and recognizing that it's not about charity, it's about returning the stolen resources to African people that are hoarded in every single white community in this country, in Europe, and throughout the world as reparations to African people. And reparations is a word that refers to repairing the damage done to a people. And often we hear it as a legal term, that it refers to compensation for a crime by a government against the people that have been wronged. One of the most well-known examples of reparations was when the German government paid reparations to Jews for the crimes committed against Jews in Nazi Germany. So sometimes, and Chairwoman Penny mentioned the mayoral campaign that happened last year in St. Petersburg. One of the questions we asked in that campaign was to white people who question this thing of reparations and say, well, how could you talk about reparations to black people? Well, no one questioned it when Jews, which is my people, Jewish people, my ancestors got reparations from Germany, and no one questioned that. So if reparations was good then, why would we have any problem with reparations to black people when the oppression of African people far outscales anything that happened to Jews in Europe 1,000-fold and beyond? I mean, like Chairwoman Penny has said, there wasn't even a word for genocide until one sector of Jewish white people felt a taste at the hands of white power, what white power as a whole had been doing to African people for hundreds of years. Before there was, Nazi concentration camps for Jews, there were German concentration camps for Africans in Namibia with Jewish support. German Jews didn't have a problem with that. When Germany went into Namibia and exterminated almost the entire Herero people of Namibia, the word genocide did not exist. And today in Germany, it's illegal to fly the swastika, the Nazi flag. But there are streets named after German colonial officers who went in and slaughtered African people in Namibia. So there's clearly a huge double standard hypocrisy going on here. And the point is, reparations are owed to African people. U.S. government owes reparations, Europe owes reparations, and white people, we owe reparations to African people. And it's not a favor, it's not something that we're doing for someone else, really. It's actually for us, for white people, to get on the right side of history and have a place in the future of the planet Earth. It's the only way. We're not going to have a future on this planet unless we right the historic wrong that is an ongoing reality today. And it's not something that we're doing as a favor. It's not something that we're doing to just for moral reasons. The moral question is profound. The question of revolutionary morality. Yes, it's the right thing to do. It's also the smart thing to do if we want to have a future on this planet. Because African people are going to be free. Indigenous people are going to take back their land. Oppressed peoples throughout the world are not going to accept another 600 years of genocide and slavery. And white people can't stand in the way of that. Not only should we not stand in the way, we should join it. We should join in solidarity. And reparations is the way we do that. So we want to raise resources tonight because the Uhuru Solidarity Movement is an organization that revolves around reparations. Every single member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement pays reparations to African people in the form of material solidarity with the economic programs of the African People's Socialist Party, which the ultimate goal of the African People's Socialist Party is not just to have economic programs, it's to liberate all of Africa and African people and all of Africa's resources back into the hands of the African working class. So that's what your reparations are going to. It's not just going to the Black Power Blueprint in St. Louis, although it is specifically in this case. It's going to the Black Power Blueprint in St. Louis, tied to the struggle in Africa, tied to the struggle in the Bahamas, tied to the struggle in Europe, of African people in Europe, everywhere, to unite as one people and reclaim control of their resources and the destinies of their children. That's what it goes to. That's reparations, and as Chairman Amali Shatella says, imperialism and white power cannot survive a successful struggle for reparations to African people, because the entire thing has to go for reparations to be carried out to its logical conclusion. When people ask how much reparations is owed to African people, like, well, how much are you talking about? You know, what's the dollar sign amount here? Like, are we, well, you can't really actually put a dollar sign on it, because even if it was just the money, it's not just about that. But if you were to put a dollar sign for unpaid slave labor, which is just the beginning, for unpaid slave labor, according to a University of Connecticut social science magazine, a study found that in today's currency, $14.2 trillion is owed to African people in this country for the cost of unpaid labor alone. That is the entire gross domestic product of the US economy, literally. So the whole thing is owed to African people. There is not a single dollar bill with a white slave master's face on it that is not owed to African people in this country. So on that note, we're going to raise resources. I'm going to call up Carrie, who's going to present our goal tonight and how people can join, because joining is a way of paying reparations. And if you're already a member, you can still contribute, you can donate, you can put in resources tonight. Or if you're already a member and you want to upgrade your membership, you can do that. Or if you don't want to be a member, you can still contribute towards reparations to African people. So let me turn it over to Carrie.